Hey everyone, welcome to the weekly OLM community meeting and issue triage. My name is Ankita, and let's get started by taking a look at last week's action items. We had a discussion around the milestone forward generation, and also there was supposed to be some discussion on Slack or a meeting scheduled to follow up for the operator as a control plane extension versus application extensions. And I do believe we had landed on something for that in Slack. Andy, would you like to talk about that?
So we did have a follow-up. I have a recording of it, which I will share with the group shortly, the Google group that is. We just continued to discuss what we had started talking about last week, which largely was the request to explore having namespace scoped installations of operators, and that these operators typically target a single namespace or a small number of namespaces, which collectively are considered a tenant. I don't think that we've settled on a direction, but it's more that we're going to be doing some research. And I know that there were some action items, which I am drawing a blank on right now off the top of my head, but we had some action items from the IBM folks, which is what I'm forgetting. And then on our end, we were going to do some brainstorming on the implications of having cluster scope bundles and namespace scope bundles, especially when it comes to installations and upgrades. And Piotr, I see you're going to fill in what I'm forgetting.
Well, specifically on the action which was on me, right? or in general IBM team. Yes. So we owe you the definition of what we define as a tenant using Kubernetes terms and a written set of scenarios in kind of one single condensed document. So which we have the first draft and we expect to share sometime this week.
Thank you.
Cool. It would be helpful if we had a link to the recording, link to the doc, so people could
yeah, I'm going to
figure out where we are. Cool. Then next, I think we can go on to the milestone chicken, and our 0.1.0 already merged. So for our milestone 4, the milestone discussion has already landed on mainly 2 main points. One is around continuing to iterate on the catalog D API surface. And the second one is to have a spec.source, a RUCPAC like spec.source union type to the catalog API. And would it make sense to add issues for these to the milestone now, or would that make sense in a different meeting?
So Ankita, if you go to the GitHub project that's tracking this, because this is the v0.2.0 milestone for operator controller, so you won't see these issues here because this is catalog D, right? But then if you go to the GitHub project, I think it's in projects. Not
as you're doing that. I think we need to populate that to answer Ankita's question. At the very least, there should be some issues there that say, pull in the next release of whatever the underlying projects are. So we just haven't had a chance to do that yet, but we should take a follow-on to go and populate that. What Anik was talking about was the underlying projects also have issues that capture some of that work that are going to culminate in another release of the underlying projects, which we'll need to consume in the operator controller. So at least the way that I've been thinking about this is like, we'll capture all the high level things in the milestone tracking for operator controller. And we just need to make issues there that say, pull in this release, and this release will include these features. And here's the demo that we want to run, pretty much like we did for milestone 3. So TLDR, we just haven't gotten to it yet at the operator controller level.
Okay, do we need to take a look at the catalog D board instead then? That might make more sense.
So
Yeah,
Ankita,
if we want to get to that level, we can.
Ankita, I put in the link to the GitHub project in the chat. I don't know if you can grab that.
Let me. Yeah, I
So if you
think I
go to
can.
milestone, if you go to milestone 4,
Okay, so we have quite a bit of issues populated here. If this is the case, then would it make sense to update the link on the agenda docs so that we get a better view of our state rather than having the main milestones populated just on the operator controller?
I personally think it would, because, for example, the catalog D issues, at least in this milestone, is all limited to catalog D. I don't know how we want to tie it into the operator, but then, for example, the integration, that can be something that could have been tracked in the operator controller. So just a lot of nuts and bolts in this whole tracking thing. It just makes it easier for me to, like, for example, it's easier to go and bootstrap a milestone, a board, and then add the label. Probably this milestone 4 should have a label over here that says, so if you go to milestone 3, Ankita.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean because the issues for milestone 3 do have that OLM milestone 3 label.
Yeah,
which I don't think we have yet for milestone 4.
So there's a label bar just right there, right above.
Yeah.
If you just copy that, paste that in the milestone 4 board, and then change that to M4. So you can see all the catalog issues that have been added. Probably click the save button on the right of the label. Yeah. Right below.
Yeah, I think it was covered by. Thank you for that, Anik. So, is there anything more that we want to add to this board, or does anyone want to give updates on progress of any of these issues? I think most of these are around catalog D, so I defer to Anik around this.
Yeah, I think one update that I want to bring up is we discussed this in the last planning meeting about getting back regarding the commitment for this particular milestone. At this point, the way things stand, I don't think, well, let me put it this way. Some of these can be, like, for example, the introduce spec.source. That could be, that is probably a stretch goal for us. Introducing config map as a source, that is also probably a stretch goal, simply because of the resource constraints with just 2 weeks remaining, and the number of people working on this. If we can get additional resource, if anybody wants to jump in and help, I think that changes, but at this point, we're looking at that as stretch goals.
I think, Joe, you had something to.
Yeah, and I was just going to repeat what Anik just said there at the end. Like, we're really interested in trying to make this more community driven. So if anyone, wants to jump in and pick up one of these things, or if there's anything else that they see that's in the list that interests them, definitely jump on it and assign yourself, or ping us in the ping us in the OLM dev channel, like whatever it is. We're interested in collaborating.
Yeah, I think we're also missing a couple of issues with the integration into operator controller here. But
That
we
is in
can,
milestone. So if you go to milestone 3, I think you'll see the issue.
no, I mean, these are the not integrating catalog D into operating controller, but to well, for the specs.source, that should be also, oh no, that is also in catalog D, you're right.
But like, the item that's in progress, number 39 there.
Yeah.
That's gonna have to require changes in operator controller. So there's like another update that happens if we make breaking changes. So, I think that's basically what I was trying to explain earlier. Like, there's gonna be some stuff in the operator controller repo that's like, oh, we want to bump to use the new version of catalog D. Oh, there's some breaking changes here. So here's some work that we need to do in operator controller to consume those.
That's in the next milestone, though. I mean, at least the way that 39 is scoped, this is just changes in catalog D. And then once the v0.2.0 release of catalog D is ready to be consumed, then we'll have an issue in operator controller that says, you're pulling in a breaking change, do this work in operator controller.
Fair enough, as long as we don't mind the subprojects being out of sync in terms of versions. I think that should be okay. And I think the next action item, the next item on our agenda is Mikołaj, you had a demo for the install plan bundle unpacking for install plans. So I can stop sharing my screen if you're ready.
Yeah, ready. Thanks. Right. Okay, you should now be able to see my screen. Let me know if you don't. So a few months ago, we just had identified an issue with OLM v0, which prevents OLM from automatically recovering from certain bundle unpacking failures. One such issue is when your catalog index gets a bundle image which is not reachable for some reason. But it's not limited to that. For example, you may have an issue with a bundle which has broken CSV, for example, or something like that. What I'm going to demo is behavior before the changes, and I will explain what we changed and really quick recording of how it works after. So here is the current behavior, which is in master. The change is still waiting for review. So I created a subscription here. Is the screen sharing working? Hopefully it is. Let me know if it's not. So
yeah, it's working.
Okay, great, thank you. So I created a subscription, and how it works now. OLM starts reconciling the creator. It already installed 0.3 version and is already working towards 0.4 version, which is broken in this demo. So we can see some messages related to unpacked job at this point, and we will, if we go back, we will see that CSV was created and it's for version 0.3, and there are already 2 install plans created for this operator, one for 0.3 and one for 0.4 versions. What happens next is operator OLM tries to wait for unpacked job to complete. In this specific demo, it will never complete. I will just, it's like literally a long recording, so there will be 10 minutes waiting. So I'll just skip over. So eventually it fails. Install plan fails because unpacking job fails. There is a, I believe, 10 minutes default timeout for unpacking. So at this point, the situation requires manual interaction on the cluster. So to recover from the state, let's imagine at this point, catalog got updated with the correct bundle, and as a user, I would expect OLM to recover from this situation to try and reconcile this. But what happens is that install plan is already in failed terminal state, and we cannot recover from this without deleting the install plan. So here I kind of simulate the recovery. Instead of updating the catalog source, I change the channel, which gives basically the same results, and we will see that OLM is not recovering here. So it's still in a failed install plan failed state, subscription is in install plan failed state. And to recover this, I'm going to delete the install plan. Sorry, I skipped too many things. All right, so here's the failed install plan. I'm going to delete this one. And now we see another new install plan got created, and subscription will eventually be successful. So it requires a manual deletion of the install plan. What we changed in the installation process, instead of creating install plan first and then making an attempt to unpack bundle, we first unpack bundle and then create an install plan and update the subscription. And this you will be able to see here. What it gives us is that we just don't create install plan. We do not set it to a terminal state, and we from time to time try to install the operator. So in this demo, I create a subscription similar as in previous demo. It installs version 0.3 and tries to install 0.4, like unpack bundle for 0.4. We will see that at this point we only have one CSV, and we have one. Probably skipped too much again. Oh yes, and we have only one install plan. So the job got created, unpacking job here got created, but we only have one install plan for the version which was successfully installed. Now we are going to wait for unpack to happen. I'm going to skip 10 minutes, and once we reach the timeout, we will see that job failed, and the same failure is getting indicated at the subscription level. We see that the job failed, the timeout exceeded. Now I'm going to see, okay, there is still only one install plan, and now I'm going to simulate the recovery, also manually editing the channel, but it's just for demo purposes. The same effect will happen if the catalog source gets updated with the correct bundles. So I edit subscription, and we will see that subscription will recover. Okay, it's unpacking, doing the business. Boom, a new version installed. So we have two install plans at this point, and subscription and CSV. That's basically it. I will stop sharing now. So that's it. This way we can now recover from one more thing without having to interact with the cluster. Any questions, comments? Quick thing. The pull request is still waiting feedback. So the pull request is I will post it in chat just in case someone wants to take a look. So link is in chat now. It's number 2942 in OLM repo.
I think Piotr raised some.
Yes, so if I may, so first of all, kudos and applause to you for addressing this one. I just wanted to say that the issue with job unpack failed is something which our customers are reporting so frequently. Well, I think it's third most common reported issues on OLM. Let me just, of course, I'll double check the PR, but this will be within not OLM v1 work stream, but against the fix will be against existing OLM v0 stream, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's and the second clarification, once again, I'll take a look at the PR, but the fix is generic, meaning that it will not try to guess what's the reason of unpack job failure, meaning that in our case, we are 100% sure it's not broken bundle issue, right? Meaning that it's not dev bundles or something like that. Surely bundles are correct. So unpack job fails because of other reasons. The fix is not checking the reason of unpack, right? And it will prevent the permanent failure, regardless of the unpack job failure type, right?
I'm not sure that I follow, but yeah, I will try to answer still. So how it works, we try to run the unpack job and we check whether it's timed out. At this point, we indicate on the subscription that the job failed. But as soon as, let's say, catalog source gets updated, we try and run the unpack again. If it's if the content changed, then it will be a new bundle path and a new job. If not, if content did not change, I believe the new job will not get created because jobs are being created based on content bundle path, and it will be the same job name. So we just check whether the job already failed or not. So it will be kind of no op situation. But yeah, the fix is I try to do it in a generic way, the most generic way possible. So it's not only the index broken, it might be something else, some other issue. So yeah, that hopefully that helps, that clarifies the. If not, let me know.
Yes, let me quickly clarify, and we don't need to spend more on that. The scenario is the following: catalog source is updated, unpack job fails. Once it terminates and then it stays, right? I need to remove the job. After the fix, I don't need to refresh catalog source once again. Correct? Because unpack jobs will be tried over and over till success.
The catalog source gets updated, then it fails for whatever reason, and then we requeue.
So it's going to retry. It's going to retry.
Yeah. So
I don't need to refresh catalog source once again. Correct?
Yeah, that's correct. But in this specific situation, I believe we will hit the. We will try to reconcile on the resync period, so it won't will be some time. I think the resync is something like 10 minutes as well, or something like that. I don't remember. But if the catalog source gets updated, it will watch the catalog source, and we will queue for namespace reconciliation, as far as I remember.
Okay, I got it. 10 minutes is okay. And we don't expect updates of the catalog sources because catalog sources are okay. They are for sure valid ones, but unpack job fails because of other reasons.
Yeah,
So don't expect catalog source to be reversed once again with any fixed version, updated version of operator bundle. But I understand it will be retried 10 minutes after. That's okay. If that's okay, if that's the behavior, that's okay.
Yeah, apart from like 10 minutes, there is there are some more there are some other retries as well. So if it fails for not the job timeout, then we requeue on error. So like there are multiple conditions in which we requeue immediately or almost immediately, and we only requeue resync on job timeout, if it makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Great job on the PR, Nikolai. That was a actually pretty serious issue when it popped up. So it's good to have a fix for this in place. So like he mentioned, the PR is still up for reviews. So if folks want to take a look at it, it's both in chat and also on the agenda doc. Then up next on our the agenda doc would be Anik requesting a TLDR about conversation about multiple threads surrounding the tenancy model in V1. This should be the same conversation that Adam has about the tenancy issues. Do we want to dive into this?
I think Andy has his hand up. I don't know if Andy, you want to go. I think you're already anticipating what I'm going to ask. So if you want to go for it, go for it.
Thanks. I think that we should continue to explore, but I don't think that we should change course until we agree as a community on what that course change might be. So I think it makes sense to continue to work on putting together integrated demos that showcase how the various components work together. And on the side or in parallel, we can continue to have these conversations. But I think if we tried today to say, hey, everybody, we're changing to this model, that model, whatever, there would be confusion. And I'd like to try and avoid or minimize that.
Okay, yeah, that's basically the conversation that I want. I was essentially out since Thursday and I saw a lot of threads that wasn't possible for me to get the TLDR, but I think that's exactly what I was looking for. So thank you, Andy.
Okay, up next, Joe, you had a demo about OPM render improvements. So would you like to share that next?
Yep. If you could let me do the screen share, I'll let my thanks. Let's see, make sure I'm picking the right one. Okay, is that big enough?
It's big enough for me.
All right, so there's a discussion, well, there's been ongoing discussion for a while about OPM render being pretty slow. And last week I was looking at this a little bit and came to the realization that a big reason that OPM render is slow is because of the OLM.bundle.object properties that are present on bundles. And as an aside, those are just horrible in there anyway, because they make it really hard to sort of parse through, visually and find the actual information that you might care about. So, because they're just like massive, huge blocks of base64 encoded text. So anyway, I was looking at this and it turns out that we put too many of those objects in bundles anyway, because we only really care about the CSV, because the only place those objects are used is to render the CSV when we serve particular gRPC API that the package server uses. And if you go look at what the package server actually cares about in the CSV, it's not even the entire CSV. So we can even trim down what needs to go in the catalog so that we can serve just what package server cares about. And then in addition to that, we can also do some concurrency improvements in the FBC loader such that we can essentially parse stuff and use multiple CPUs to make things go faster. So anyway, I'll kind of walk through here the steps and the different options that you have for making OPM render faster on your catalog. So the first thing is just sort of the baseline of using OPM master with an original, basically an unmodified catalog that was essentially OPM migrated on with OPM master, right? So it's kind of like what we have today if you migrate an SQLite catalog to an FBC catalog. So this takes 10 seconds on this particular catalog. I've got another. So if we use the exact same catalog, but we use the new build of OPM based on this PR, this has significant improvements. And this is essentially just because of multi-threading, right? So we're going from 10 seconds down to 3 1/3 seconds. So we're seeing a pretty good increase just by multi-threading. But we can do better. So if we look at just CSVs, right? So if we remove the olm.bundle.object properties for all of the other bundle contents, and we only put CSV olm.bundle.object properties in the catalog, then we're down to less than 1 second. So we're seeing like a 10x improvement with that. And then even further, this is where things are a little bit more significantly changed. If we get rid of the CSV and instead replace it with a new property called, which I put in this PR, olm.csv.metadata, and put just the fields that we care about from the CSV, then it gets down to 288 milliseconds. So that's like a 35x improvement on speed. If we want to look at what this looks like, let's see if I can find one quickly. So we still have the icon. That's not going away. But now there's a channel. Here's the bundle, right? Okay, so here's CSV metadata. So this CSV metadata is in place of what used to be an olm.bundle.object for the CSV. So this is essentially what the package server serves in the package manifest API. And no more, right? So like we don't put stuff in this metadata that's not actually served. Some of this we could think about like putting at a different level. So we could put a lot of these, we could iterate more and put display name and keywords and links and maintainers and stuff up at the package level potentially, and that would make this even smaller because we could deduplicate that kind of stuff. But this is pretty much it, right? The other interesting thing here is the gRPC server is backwards compatible, right? So if you have an olm.bundle.object that has the CSV in it, it'll just use that and serve it. So the only time the CSV metadata object gets used is if you don't have any other olm.bundle.objects. Well, specifically if you don't have a CSV bundle.object. And this is set. So in that case, then what we essentially do is we generate a CSV on the fly, and we inject the icon from the package into that CSV. So we only have to put the icon in once for the entire package, and then that gets injected every time the server asks or a client asks for a particular bundle for a channel. So anyway, that's sort of the demo. Things seem much better. And I don't know if Chris Johnson is here, but apologies that I'm taking away your excuse to drink several coffees while you run OPM render. Any questions, comments on this? The one thing I haven't done yet, and it's on my list, and one of the reasons that this PR has a hold on it is actually build a catalog with the CSV.metadata and run it against the package server and see what comes out and make sure it looks the same. So that needs to happen. But I at least have all the tests updated and working the way that I expect them to work. So at least from the registry side, it looks correct. But we just want to make sure that the assumptions that the tests are making are valid from the client perspective as well. Okay, now questions, comments.
Joe, does this represent a change to the FBC format and require a new registry binary to serve this content then? Because my impression is that you've moved around where content is in the FBC.
No, so nothing has really moved. If you want to use the OPM or the OLM.csv.metadata property, then you would need to use this version of OPM that knows about it. Other than that, like if you look at the CSVs only and original, these have no changes to the format at all. CSVs only is basically just like look at all the olm.bundle.objects and filter out any of them that aren't CSVs. So that catalog is just a subset of the original catalog with some of the stuff removed. The just metadata catalog has a new property introduced, the CSV.metadata, and if you want to serve that property in a way that the gRPC server understands it, you have to use the version of OPM that knows about it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So just that last change would require a different serving binary.
Yes.
So that means that this requires, if you were to use the olm.csv.metadata blob, it would require change in the package server. But if that is true, then the package server would need to make sure that it works against OPM, newer builds of OPM and older builds of OPM. Is that correct? Or
No, the idea here is the package server uses the same API, gets the same information that it's always gotten, except that when it, so there's a gRPC API called get bundle for channel that it calls, and it returns a bundle object for each of the channel heads. When you ask for, if you say get bundle for channel foo, it gives you the channel head bundle object for channel foo. And then if you look at the package manifest API, you get all of the CSV descriptions for all of the channel heads. So package server basically looks at the package, figures out all the channels, and then calls get bundle for channel for each of those channels. So what this does is it says, okay, well, I know exactly what package server actually needs to serve the package manifest API. So when I serve that gRPC endpoint, I'll still give it a CSV that it's always expected, but now like I don't need to populate the deployment strategy field and the some of the other fields that are not actually consumed by the package server. So that's that last step, is just confirming that, but there should be no changes required on the package server side at all for this.
okay, and then I can see that there's a increase in the CPU. Is that because it's creating that, it's doing that extra step of creating the CSV, customizing the CSV and stuff? Or
You're saying like this here?
yeah, I don't know if that'll be a concern later on.
That's just because we're now multi-threaded. So there's one of the commits in this PR is make load FS concurrent. So when we walk the file system, we send basically we can parse multiple files in the file system at once. And then there's a step that combines that all into one thing. So the CPU usage here is we can parse multiple files at once.
Okay, that's great.
All right. Anything else? Otherwise, that's all I got.
Yeah, I think if we can get FBC any smaller, that's a huge win in my book.
Oh yeah, that's another good point. Let me share my screen real quick. Not that it matters that much, but from a size perspective, this is very dependent on what's in the catalog, but the original catalog that we're talking about here is 170 meg. If you remove, at least in this case, right, if you remove all the other bundle objects that are not CSVs, it gets down to 41 meg. If you further convert those CSVs to just the metadata for those, it gets down to 22 meg. So not only is there a CPU improvement here, but there's a network bandwidth improvement in terms of shipping all these catalogs around everywhere. Okay, I think now I'm done.
Thank you for that, Joe. I think that's a much needed improvement to FBC if we decide to move forward with it. I'm not sure how much change we'd need to integrate that with V0 if that's the plan, but it's probably definitely something we want for V1. Well, going on to the idea generation for milestone 4. We already have some issues around catalog D that have been generated, but for DEPI and operator controller, we still probably need issues to be added to the board. That is something we could do offline if that works for folks, but we can take a look at where we landed on the ideation for milestone 4 in this meeting.
Thank you. I think this was really more about the next milestone. So one thing I did last week is I merged a change in the roadmap doc that puts all of the requirements into headers so that we can link to them. Where the next step is essentially, rather than going milestone at a time and coming up with ideas, the plan that I have in my head, at least, is to start scoping out some of the roadmap features and figuring out, how we can chunk that work up and make some discussions or issues or something about those roadmap features. And then we'll have a backlog of those. And then the milestone idea generation essentially turns into which of those existing backlog chunks do we want to pull in and refine further. So that's my plan for the next week or so to get that stuff sort of moving.
If I remember correctly, is this kind of what you're intending, like to link issues to an overall release version and to go by that?
Yeah, but what I'm talking about more tactically is, like, if you pull up that 184 comment again, you'll see, like, oh, here's like stuff we want to do for DEPI and stuff we want to do for catalog D and stuff we want to do for operator controller. So what I think we probably need to do is, rather than like trying to put all of this all the time and copy paste as we move forward in these milestone ideations, like, let's just go write up some discussions or issues or meta issues or something for, like, what catalog D work do we need to do? What DEPI work do we need to do? What operator controller work do we need to do? And make those separate issues or discussions. And then this would, like, if I do an ideation for milestone 5, 0.3.0, then it would just be like, here's a bunch of issues that exist, with links to the issues. Like, what do folks think is unblocked and high priority and high value, and et cetera, et cetera. So rather than copying and pasting all this text and rewriting over and over, it's more just talking about the stuff that already exists in the backlog.
All right, so if we are going to talk about milestone 5 though, are we just continuing off of what we have for milestone 4 and extending that, or?
And it'll probably be a little bit of what's in milestone 4 that we didn't pull in, but I don't think we're quite ready to create a new discussion for milestone 5, because I think we want to do some of that backlog generation first, which, you know, everyone is welcome to contribute to. I was going to try to put in some of the, you know, seed it essentially with the ideas that I have. Andy and I have been talking a little bit about how to organize it. So I was taking it as sort of an action for me to try to get some of that stuff laid down, and then, you know, we can all do it together as a community from there.
Where do you think this roadmap discussions, do you think all of them will be created in operator controller repo?
That's a good question. I think at a high level, it'll all sort of start there, but that's what I was going to do for the next milestone, at least. So I think that's probably an open question, and we can iterate on it. I don't want to just, you know, analysis paralysis, figure out, well, where do we do it? Do we do it here? Do we do it there? At the end of the day, like, it just needs to be somewhere somewhat central that everyone can find it. But we'll see, you know, when the rubber hits the road, what works and what doesn't. But yes, to answer your question, for now, I'm just going to put everything in the operator controller repo, essentially next to the OLM v1 roadmap doc, not as a file in the repo, but it's sort of co-located with that roadmap.
You know, that sounds good to me. I just wanted to know where I have to go and look. I assume that there'll be an announcement once those are created, but I can keep an eye out.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't decided if they should be issues or discussions or what, so we'll be chatting in Slack about it, I'm sure.
Well, okay then. I think we've gotten through all of our items on the agenda doc for now. And I think for the action items, I heard there was the recording from the tenancy discussion that Andy, you mentioned that you would be uploading. So
Yeah, I
or
put the
linking.
link down at the bottom of the May 9th heading.
Okay, so that is done. And besides that, there is well, there's also the idea generation for milestone 5 that needs to take place, which still you mentioned that you would be doing, or rather the backlog generation. And apart from that, I don't remember if we had any major action items that we needed to get to.
We need to move all the operating controller work into the project view. So, and the
Oh, yes.
so I'll take you to that one.
Yeah. And I think those should be our major action items for this week. And I think we're through all of our major discussion topics. So I want to thank everyone for joining this week. And I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks, Ankita.
Thank you.